So what menopause is it's literally one day, 12 months after your last period. When your hormones go down, so many other things in your whole health landscape start to diminish. Your heart health goes down, your risk of heart attack goes up, your bone health decreases, your brain starts to have some real problems.
Now, what can we do?
This is the question, right, that everyone wants to know. And I think what I want women to know is there's lots that we can do to help support our body while our hormones are declining.
Welcome to The Search for Wellness, a podcast dedicated to discovering the path to a healthier, more fulfilling life. Join us on this heartfelt journey as we share inspiring stories, insightful conversations, and practical tips to nurture your mind, body, and spirit.
Amanda Wright is a physical therapist, yoga instructor, a menopause coach who recently moved to Nairobi, Kenya from Denver, Colorado, with her husband and teenage son. She has always been fascinated with the human body and optimizing health through movement, nutrition, and mindset, and loves teaching other women how to do the same. Her interests in menopause coaching began when she was going through the midlife transition herself, with few resources and guidance. She became her own student and started to put in place habits, mindset shifts to help her look and feel the best, and now passes that knowledge on to her clients. In her spare time, you'll find Amanda walking her dog Lulu, likely wearing a weighted vest and listening to a health-related podcast. Welcome, Amanda.
Thanks, Pooja.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I think the introduction said a few things about me. I'm really happy to be in Nairobi, loving this transition. I was a physical therapist for years and have, like I said, have always just been really interested in the body and how to help myself and my friends feel their best and look their best. And in my mid-40s, things just started to change and I wasn't really expecting it. I was one of these women, and I think a lot of women can probably relate. I was on the birth control pill for years, and then had kids, and then was on an IUD. So I was really disconnected from my hormonal shifts and from things really going on. And then the mid-40s hit and things just started to change. I noticed brain fog, which was really kind of scary. I was thinking I needed some sort of MRI to rule out a brain tumor. I was having trouble with word finding and just not as sharp as I was. I was feeling low energy, which for me was not normal. I had low libido, and so that was hard, and just not feeling like myself. And so that's kind of when I went on this journey. And it really coincided with me taking a hormone health coach certification. And so for the past couple of years, just been really diving into this whole idea of menopause, perimenopause, this transition, and using myself as my own student, like I said, and really wanting to help other women not only get through it, but to thrive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah,
thriving through life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't even know what menopause really is.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just first talk about what menopause even is.
Yeah. My mom certainly didn't talk about it. It wasn't something I feel like in school we had our puberty classes, right? We were all the girls got together and we learned about puberty and periods and all those things. And we had some tools. And the other end of the spectrum, we get nothing.
Yeah.
The doctors don't bring it up. We don't really talk about it with our friends because there's some shame around it. It's like, what's this weird thing happening? Is this normal? And so, there's really, there's very little to knowledge that they're out there. So what menopause is it's literally one day, 12 months after your last period.
Wow.
So it's you really just can miss it because unless you're tracking and know that exact day. Perimenopause, though, is really that up to 10 years before your last period. So that can start in your 30s, mid-30s, 40s, and it's really the time where your hormones, they're giving it their last shot at your body. The estrogen, the testosterone, the progesterone, which all are in sync when we have our regular periods. During perimenopause, they're going a little bit crazy. And so you are maybe getting really high estrogen 1 month, really low estrogen 1 month. And so perimenopause is really the time where your body is just slowly petering out, so to speak, on your ovaries producing these essential hormones for our health. And then postmenopause is the time period after that last official period. And so it could be up to half of our lives as women. And that's why it's so interesting, frustrating that there's so little information out there about it. I mean, we're starting to get more, but certainly it takes effort to learn.
And is it only humans who go through menopause?
No, there are some other mammals that do. Off the top of my head, I think the whale does maybe. So yeah, very few animals though go through it. And even 2-3 generations ago, our great-grandmothers, maybe great-great-great-great-grandmothers, they weren't expected to live much beyond menopause. So there wasn't really this need to learn about it, to help women through it. It was just something that we sort of, no one talked about. You just got through it. But the downside of this, and we'll go into more of this, is that when your hormones go down, so many other things in your whole health landscape start to diminish. Your heart health goes down, your risk of heart attack goes up, your bone health decreases, your brain starts to have some real problems. So it's not just this, a few hot flashes and I have to get through it. These are lifelong health issues that will be with you for life unless you address and the actual cause of menopause, which is the declining hormones.
And obviously, when a woman is in her childbearing ages, she obviously has all these hormones, everything is working fine, and you don't realize how important they are until they're gone.
Yes.
Until you don't have them anymore.
Yeah, and we're talking about sort of this perimenopause period. Women start to get symptoms of lessening hormones. Again, estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone are really the three that have this beautiful symphony during our period and our 28-day cycle. And then in perimenopause, things start to go awry. And so women start seeing things in their body, itchy skin, brain fog. They have, low libido. They're feeling very tired. They have heart palpitations, and they're not really putting together, hey, all these things are actually related back to my hormones going down. So it's can be a really scary period, and also anxiety and depression comes up a lot during this period. And so women can really be thinking there's something really wrong with me, and they go to 6 or 7 different doctors for different symptoms, when really it's just their hormones.
So speak a bit more about the symptoms, because a lot of people don't, like you're saying, you could be going to 5 or 6 different doctors because you have all these random symptoms, but those all could be related to perimenopause.
Yeah,
what kind of symptoms could they be?
This was a big aha for me, because I thought estrogen, ovaries, I thought it was all related to sort of your period and your ovaries and maybe your skin. I don't know. I guess I didn't think about it being throughout your body. And so there's estrogen receptors literally almost in every cell of your body, including your brain and your skin and for inflammation. And so the symptoms can be really cover every piece of you. And I mentioned a couple, but there are over 50 symptoms of perimenopause.
Wow.
And so you can Google those. But I would say if you're in your late 30s to 40s and you're experiencing something that's different for you, that would be almost the first place I would look, be your hormone changes.
And it's interesting you say that, because I started developing these joint pains.
Yes.
Really random joint pains.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this, I think, in the past. And I was like, what's going on? I'd wake up in the morning and my feet would feel like tingly, all of this stuff. And then I started doing a little bit of research onto menopause.
Yeah.
And realized that I'm probably in my perimenopausal state now. So now I'm very aware and very alert about things like even just changes to my skin, like little rashes that appear randomly, and the brain fog that appears randomly. Now, what can we do?
This is the question, right? That everyone wants to know. And I think what I want women to know is there's lots that we can do to help support our body, again, while our hormones are declining. And I think it starts, if you're listening to this and you're in your 30s, it really starts in your 30s by taking care of yourself. And what do I mean by that? It's making sure that you're on top of your sleep as much as you can. If you're in your 30s, you might have young kids and life is happening pretty fast, but being on top of your sleep, your stress levels. If you go into perimenopause and menopause with high cortisol levels and you're already a 9 out of 10 for stress, it's going to be much harder for you to get on top of your hormone levels and feel your best. So making sure, just the basics, your sleep, your stress levels, nutrition, anti-inflammatory nutrition is so important. Estrogen has an anti-inflammatory effect in our body. So when it sort of leaves the building, leaves the body, what we're left with is, our body has a harder time keeping our body in an anti-inflammatory state. So things like our cholesterol goes up, our inflammatory markers go up. And so we really have to work twice as hard at inflammation. And so things, just basic things like, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, cutting out processed sugars and carbs, and decreasing your alcohol consumption. I mean, all those things can help. And then really concentrating on, and this is a big love of mine because I'm a physical therapist, is really concentrating on building your muscle. And I think this gets a little scary because women are afraid, I'm going to bulk up or I'm going to get too muscular. It's really hard to get too muscular at my age and perimenopause. You want to build this muscle right now. It's our muscle, it's our organ of longevity. And so the more that we can build muscle, the better we are going to be set for our metabolism, for longevity, for fighting off all chronic disease. The more muscle you have, the better chances you have at a positive outcome.
I'm definitely an example of how hard it is to build muscle, because I try, and then it's so difficult.
Yes.
Women think it's so easy. You'll just go to the gym and you'll lift some weights and you'll bulk up. No, I mean, that happens to men because men have a lot more testosterone in their body than we do.
Yes.
But for women, it actually is a real challenge.
It is. And I always, I think going to see a trainer that understands our aging bodies and our changing bodies, and really understands that we need a different programming than maybe the young girls in their 20s that are looking for, they can do the really high intensity exercises. We need more strength training, specifically that we're lifting a bit heavier weights, maybe not as many reps, and really building on a program. So if you're listening and you want to get started, obviously, asking around, finding a trainer that already has knowledge of women in our age group. And then you mentioned, these aches and pains. There is something called the musculoskeletal condition of menopause, which has been named just in the past year, and it's real. It's when estrogen again declines, we get the joint aches, the frozen shoulders, all the things that come with that. And so women are at higher risk for those things. So just making sure, yes, we want you to strength train, but we don't want you to get injured while you're doing it. So just finding someone that's really aware of that. So, strength training, just to go back what you can do, strength training, nutrition, sleep, stress, and then obviously finding a practitioner that can address the hormones, right? Because that is sort of the missing piece for a lot of us. And so when you're in perimenopause, that may be, giving you some progesterone to get started, because that's sort of your relaxing hormone, and that's the hormone that tends to go down first. And then eventually, moving on to more traditional hormone replacement therapy. And we can talk more about that if you want to, but.
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, we'll talk about HRT in a bit, but I wanted to also ask you about fasting.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of this take on fasting at the moment, and you hear people talk about intermittent fasting and how fasting is so essential for women, especially during the perimenopausal state and even postmenopausal state. What is your take on it?
Yeah, I think fasting is a tool in the toolbox, right? I say it works really well for some women it doesn't. I think the downside of fasting is that it can actually raise cortisol levels. If you're already stressed out, and then your body, fasting is a stressed state.
Yeah.
And so if you're already stressed out, you're not sleeping well, you're running on fumes, and then you put your body into this fasting state, it can really work against you, and your cortisol levels can go up. And then you start to hang on to more belly fat because there's more cortisol receptors in your belly than anywhere else in your body, 4 times as many. So
and that's only for women?
Yeah. And so, aren't we lucky?
Yeah. Just perfect.
Yeah. So some women it works well, and some women it doesn't. Some women it just causes that extra stress response. So now they're fasting, and maybe they're cutting out carbs because they've also heard that's a good thing. And so now their body's like, wait a minute, now you're not feeding me for 14, 16 hours, and now you're cutting out carbs. And so the body is just continually trying to catch up on that. So I am more in the nourishment camp for women for perimenopause and menopause. Nourishing meaning fasting, but 12 hours, maybe 14 hours. And we all should be doing that, right? From your last meal to your first meal, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., something like that. But once you push beyond 14, 16 hours, I just, for me and for the women that I've worked with, it's just a little too hard on the body, especially in perimenopause.
And it's interesting you say that, because you just need to know yourself, right?
Yeah,
You need to
yeah.
know your body.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that I do it naturally anyways, by chance, because of, going to the studio, teaching my class. And then after teaching my class, by the time I come home and I have my breakfast, by chance I end up fasting for 14 to maybe 15, 16 hours. And it's fine. It feels good for me to do that.
Yeah.
And I think my body's also kind of used to that. So it doesn't raise my cortisol, because I haven't put my body in a stress response. But if I go anything above that, then I know that my body's like, okay, you don't do this normally, so what are we doing? Why are you putting me in this stress response? The other thing that I also found that was quite interesting that I heard about recently was a bit to do with the same thing about the holding the belly fat around the waist and eye spots. Apparently, for women specifically, the eye spots, like, there's this whole craze right now about, having an ice bath and stuff. And it's all well and good, especially when it comes to the emotional releases that I had the talk with Nathan about. But when it comes to the physical benefits, men see far more physical benefits with ice baths than women do. And women, again, they end up getting this belly fat and they hold on to the cortisol around their waist because they've put their body in such a stress response. So technically, women don't actually need to go in a bath that is as cold as men. It could even just be 15.
Yeah.
It could be 10, 15 degrees, and that's good enough for women. We don't actually need to go. So that's good news for us. We don't actually have to be in freezing cold temperatures to actually feel that same effect that men do.
Yeah,
which is quite interesting.
I think that's great. Yeah, it is. I read that too. It's an interesting piece of the ice bath, and I'm more of a sauna girl, so you probably won't catch me in an ice bath. But I do think, again, just going back to this whole transition and helping women, kind of decide who they want to be, how they want to be in this next phase. It's really listening to their body, right? Listening to themselves. So if you love an ice bath, go for it. But if it's not speaking to you, and again, this word nourishment, if it's not nourishing you, it may not be for you. Same with fasting. So I really love women to really fuel their body versus restricting, right? And so it's what can we add into your nutrition? What can we do to make you feel better about yourself and to feel good and to feel grounded and all those things, and to help just you feel that you have better control over your own health. And I think for every woman that's different, but there's some general guidelines.
Yeah. And when it comes to nutrition, what kind of nutrition? Like, give us some specifics of what you think would be a go-to and what you would say stay clear of.
Yeah. So if you've listened to anything about menopause, you've probably heard protein, and I will definitely amen that protein is king in the menopause, perimenopause space, because again, we're working on regulating blood sugar. When our estrogen goes down, our blood sugar has a harder time regulating. So we want to eat to regulate blood sugar. So protein really helps with that. So we want to try and get 1 gram per pound of body weight. I know I'm speaking American terms, but
that's okay.
we can your audience can make the calculations, but really 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight is ideal. And so really when you focus on getting that much protein a day, there's not a lot of room for a lot of extra crap in your diet, right? So we really try to concentrate maybe 40 grams at breakfast, 40 at lunch, and 40 at dinner. And then, adding a few snacks along the way. So really starting, your plate should be mostly protein, animal and plant-based. I used to be vegetarian. I've sort of transitioned into eating some meat now, really to get the protein in. I really am careful about the protein sources I choose for animals, but I found it really hard to get my protein intake with just plants. And so focusing on the protein and then adding those complex carbohydrates, that's going to be great for our cortisol levels, for our brain, for our energy. When you take carbs out of the diet completely, you're going to be very tired and your mood is going to change. And so having those complex carbs in the diet, and then healthy fats for sure. So our avocados, our coconut oils, things to really help our brain continue to function. And then have some fun in your life. Like, it's not, this is a period too where you don't want to just be so rigid, right? And so whether it's that glass of wine or the chocolate or whatever, that's okay. Again, nourishing yourself.
What about dairy and gluten?
I think that's so independent for people. I think it's experimenting with yourself. Gluten can be inflammatory for lots of people, especially if you have any digestive issues to start with. And so if you've noticed that that it causes intestinal distress or brain fog for you or any of the other symptoms of gluten intolerance, I would say, probably taking it out is a good thing. But I wouldn't just naturally take it out for everyone.
Yeah.
I think, again, there's some people that tolerate it fine.
And dairy?
Dairy, again, it's so specific for the person. I've tried cutting it out in my life and didn't really notice the difference. So now I'm back to eating Greek yogurts and things. I still don't drink dairy milk, but I think it can be a decent source of protein if it works for the person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about supplements?
Supplements. So I love supplements. I
think it's important that everyone should be taking supplements.
Yeah. I always say it starts with the foods that you eat, right? Mm-hmm. If you're adding in supplements and eating like crap, you're just wasting your money.
Exactly.
Right? So it's got to start with that, with really focusing on what you're eating, the quality of foods, the number of fruits and vegetables, the fiber, all the things. But then supplements really do help fill in the gaps. And so for perimenopause and menopause, I think a good magnesium. I take magnesium glycinate. I think there's 7 different kinds of magnesium. Yeah. I take glycinate because it helps me sleep, and for most women, that's a really great one for sleep.
Yeah,
so
I take that one too.
I take it at night. I take vitamin D3 with a K with it, so it's absorbed well. Most women, again, we're in Kenya, so women here may not be as low, but women throughout the world usually have a less than optimized vitamin D. And so we want women, vitamin D, again, is just one of those hormonal markers that can really help you with longevity, with fighting off disease, all the things. So most women need a good vitamin D supplement. Omegas, I think, again, really hard to get in the diet. So unless you're eating a ton of fish and salmon and flaxseed and those kinds of things, adding in an omega-3, it could be plant-based, it could be fish-based, and making sure those levels are optimized. And then I take some things like I take a liquid collagen, which I love. Collagen is it's found in bones and our connective tissue, our fascia, and so we start losing collagen in our 30s. So I take a really high-quality liquid collagen. And from there, I think it really, again, is just dependent on the person. But those are sort of across the board what I would recommend.
This podcast was created to inspire and connect with people. If you are liking the content of this podcast, hit the subscribe button, like, follow, and share this platform. Lots of love.
Obviously, I take a lot of supplements.
Mm-hmm.
I take different ones for different things and for different reasons. But if it came to specifically for menopause, you would say that these are the ones that you would definitely say every single woman needs.
I think every woman could benefit from those.
But do you think it's necessary for them to start taking this even before they hit menopause?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those things are also going to support your adrenal glands, which really help to regulate your cortisol. And so before perimenopause or during perimenopause, that's the time when we're raising young kids, when we're going. Maybe we're working full time. We've got a lot going on. And so our adrenal glands are working overtime. And so the more that we can really help support our adrenals during pre-perimenopause, to perimenopause, and to menopause, the better off we're going to be, just for all the reasons I listed about estrogen being anti-inflammatory, and really it works to help us regulate our stress levels. So any supplement that's going to help with that, I think, will work to our benefit.
And these? What are these?
Oh, I brought some little fun things. So this is hormone replacement therapy.
Okay.
And so hormone replacement therapy is basically replacing the hormones that you're losing. And so the first hormone is estrogen, made by the ovaries, and again, found in every cell of our body. Women were afraid, or there was a lot of misconception about hormone replacement therapy. A study was started in 1991 called the Women's Health Initiative, 16,000 women. There was flaws in the study. A little blurb came out in 2002 that made doctors and women basically stop all their medication. And it was wrong, it shouldn't have happened, but it was scary. It was scary for women. And because the study was flawed, it took a while for doctors to start getting confidence to prescribe again. So if you're listening and you've heard some bad things about HRT, I just encourage you to kind of go back and revisit, because there's been a lot of great new information out. And I did bring some books. One that I recommend is Estrogen Matters, Dr. Avram Blooming. He really goes into the science of why every woman should at least consider hormone replacement therapy. Not every woman is a candidate, but it should be considered, especially for those longevity reasons of bone health, brain health, and heart health. So what I brought is my little concoctions or things I've tried. Now, I'm a menopause coach. I just had to share this part of my story because I do this for a living. Like I listen to podcasts. I've had my certifications, and it's taken me over a year to find the right combination for me. And I know this stuff, right? And so if you're listening and you've gone to one doctor or you've tried one method, I want you to just keep digging, keep asking questions, maybe find a new practitioner, because it can take a while to know what your body absorbs, what kind you need. So I'll just briefly go over. So estradiol it comes in many forms. It comes in these little patches that you can change twice a week. So I started with these, and I wasn't absorbing them. I would put them on twice a week, and I'd go get my blood work done, and my levels weren't really changing. My symptoms weren't changing. And so after a while, I then went to something called a pellet, which was inserted into my butt. It's like a little pellet of estrogen and testosterone.
Interesting. That
absorbed really well, but it didn't absorb. It absorbed very fast. And so my levels went whoo, and then kind of tanked out. So actually it was a doctor here that ended up prescribing my estradiol gel, which I'm now loving. And I just put a squirt in my arm every morning, and it absorbs into my skin, and my levels are good, and I feel good. The brain fog's gone. So, I may end up having to change. My body will change. I may have to change how many pumps I do. But for right now, this is working for me. But again, there's also oral estradiol, which has a little bit higher risk of blood clotting. So I would tend to stay away from that one. But these are some options for that. For progesterone, I forgot my progesterone, but that comes in a micronized progesterone pill that I take at night. Again, it's very calming. Progesterone is your calming hormone. So you want to take that at night, so that most people, it really does help with their sleep. Again, bioidentical hormones, and I think we really want to make sure that people kind of know the difference.
Yeah, what is the difference?
Yeah, so synthetic hormones are made in a lab. They're chemical, and they don't have the exact same makeup. If you looked at the carbons and the hydrogens and the chemical makeup as a bioidentical hormone. And so it works similar in the body, but your body doesn't quite know exactly what to do with it. So birth control pill is an example of a synthetic hormone. And lots of us took that for many years and didn't have any idea it was a synthetic hormone, at least I did. And so there are more risks with synthetic hormones. So a bioidentical hormone has been made from a plant, same chemical structure as the actual hormone in our body. And so our body knows exactly what to do with it, and there's less overall risk for us.
But not all HRT medication is made the same.
Not all, right? And so when you go and talk to your practitioner, you really want to make sure that you have your list of, whenever you go to your doctor, I always say, have your list of symptoms, what you've already done to address those symptoms, what's working, what's not working, and then have your questions, come informed, right? And so you want to ask about bioidentical hormones. There are still some hormones out there that are not bioidentical. There's a progestin versus progesterone. Progestin's the synthetic one. And again, they're not all, I wouldn't throw them all out. Sometimes they work for some women, and sometimes they would be prescribed. But for the most part, I think everyone's moving towards bioidentical for safety.
And what about natural? Like, is there anything that you can do HRT-wise that's like hormone replacement, but it's a more natural form? Like, like we spoke about the progesterone. What was it? The
yams?
Yams.
Yeah. So nothing is the same. I would say the most natural thing are these hormones, because they're exactly the same as the hormone in your body.
Okay.
There are some herbs, maybe some black cohosh is one, yam cream, that do able to mimic estrogen, and they can, from what I understand, I'm not an expert in this, but I think they can help reduce the symptoms of menopause. That's okay, and it works for some women, but I really want people listening to know that just because you're reducing the symptoms doesn't mean you're getting the full effects of having estrogen back in your body, right? And really, for me, and I think for a lot of women, we want to stay out of nursing homes. We want to prevent those hip fracture breaks. We want to prevent having Alzheimer's. I think the Alzheimer's rate is there's 3 times as many women having Alzheimer's now than men.
crazy.
Why do you think that is? It's a lot to do with estrogen. And there's another book I recommend that's called The Menopause Brain. And she's a brilliant researcher, Dr. Lisa Mosconi. If you want to look her up or buy this book or just YouTube podcasts. But she really talks about her research and why estrogen replacing this estrogen. So some of those things, black cohosh, yam cream, some of the other herbs, again, may be great for symptom management, but again, long term, they're not increasing the tensile strength of our bones. They're not improving the neurosynapses in our brain. They're not protecting our heart.
Yeah.
So that's really what, when we think of menopause long term, again, we've got half of our life left. We want to go in this next half of our life not only looking and feeling our best, but having longevity, right? Having strong bones and strong brains.
How long would you have to stay on this? For life,
Yeah,
basically.
Basically
right?
Until the risks outweigh the benefits. And so every person, that's going to be different. Ideally, you start on this within, you can start on hormone replacement. Again, you'd have to work with your own doctor. I'm not a doctor, on when you should start. But really, once you start, you want to stay on to get those full effects until the risks outweigh the benefits. So, I plan to stay on for as long as I can.
As long as you can,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. If some women, if they end up with some other medical complication, then they may have to relook at their risk benefits. But for most part, you would just stay on them.
And you said earlier...
Oh, I wanted to actually just talk about this one for 1 minute. So this is testosterone. Mm-hmm. This is a testosterone cream that I also put on my arm and rub in once a day. And testosterone, we actually, we have a good amount of testosterone in our body. It's very small compared to men,
yeah.
But we have enough that low testosterone can lead to low libido, not just sexual libido, which everyone thinks of, and yes, it can cause low libido, but libido, I've heard this described as just your zest for life. Testosterone really gives you that get up and go, that I want to have goals, sort of those masculine, I want to make that next step. I want to do that goal. And women, when their testosterone is low, they just feel kind of blah. So having testosterone on board can really help with just sexual libido and also just your drive in life, that drive. And then also can help with brain fog. So those would be sort of reasons to maybe look at. And also muscle building. It's great for muscle building.
But doesn't exercise just increase your testosterone naturally anyways?
I think that I don't know for sure on that. I'm sure that it does in some level, but probably not to the levels of what we require. Yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I think I have low testosterone. I need that.
I know where you can get some.
Okay, done.
And it's not, unfortunately, it's one of those things that the FDA, at least in America, has not caught up that women... It's not FDA approved in the US, so you have to go through some different routings, some compounding pharmacies.
Okay.
Again, it took me, I started with little troches under my tongue, didn't absorb those. I did injections in my butt. Those, I went really high. I did the pellet, and now I'm on the cream. So it took me over a year and lots of different combinations. So for the listeners, I hope it doesn't take you that many tries, but just know that everyone is a bit different, and to keep at it. Everything about it is worth it to feel better.
You said not everyone qualifies for HRT. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't qualify for HRT?
Well, from my understanding, and I'm not a doctor, but from my understanding, if you've had a history of strokes or blood clots, that would be a reason, sort of an alert, that you should get more tests done, because there is a small, again, with oral testosterone, there's a small increased risk of blood clot stroke. Again, I don't want to scare anyone. You'd have to do your own research or talk to your doctor. But I think that that's one thing. And then also, if you've had breast cancer, then that would be another reason you would want to, just make sure it's okay for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's a lot of studies that have actually come out about the breast cancer risk and HRT causing uterine cancer, apparently. If you've had breast cancer and then you take HRT. Yeah,
you want to, for uterine cancer, you want to take, and every doctor will know this, you don't want to take estrogen, it's called unopposed. So you always want to have estrogen and progesterone together. The progesterone both of those really help to protect the uterus, but if you just take estrogen, it can cause some extra growing of the uterus, because that's what estrogen does in our bodies, is it prepares our body for pregnancy, right? Yeah. And so you want to have that progesterone to counter it.
Yeah. And what about emotional? We've talked about all the physical.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the most important thing people don't understand is that women go through so much emotionally when it comes to menopause.
Yeah. Maybe one of the emotions I think a lot of women feel, and they don't even know they're feeling it, is grief, because they've lost their ability to have kids, right? And so that chapter closes, which most of us didn't necessarily want to have more kids, but we also wanted, maybe it's just nice to know that we are still have that ability, that our uterus is working, that all is functioning. So there's some grief in there that we are no longer of childbearing age, right? And then there's just the grief of, hey, I don't look the same. My skin is changing. My hair is thinning. Maybe I'm gaining weight. I'm not able to run as well as I used to. So some of the things that used to either physically identify ourselves as, and then also, how we present in the world just as, as an athlete, or, I can't do the things I used to do. And it really plays on our confidence. And so I think that the emotional piece, there's grief, there's sadness, there's just the hormonal changes of anxiety. Women's anxiety can go really high during perimenopause and menopause, and that can cause a lot of just side effects. You can really wreck with your sleep. And then depression is a big concern in perimenopause and menopause. And so just being on the lookout and noticing your own moods and noticing how they change, and don't wait to get help. And for a lot of women, it is starting with hormone replacement, possibly. It's starting with definitely looking at your diet and your exercise, your community, not feeling alone. I think this is a time that we want to share with our friends.
Yeah,
So many of us have, again, going back to our mothers, they didn't share anything with anyone, right? And so they were very isolated during this time. And so I think our generation is changing in that aspect, and that we're willing to talk to our girlfriends about a lot of this. And so finding your community, even if it's on TikTok or Instagram, or there's so many great women out there sharing what they're doing and what's working and what's not working. So don't feel alone during this time. Really find your people, and I'm happy to be one of those people for you. We can talk about how to find me later, but that's the piece I don't want women to feel as alone, and to feel that they're the only ones going through it, because 25% of women in the world are going through this right now.
Yeah.
So you're not alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
And even if a doctor or a professional makes you feel like this is your fault, or that you need to go straight to an antidepressant, or you need therapy, those things can also be tools in the toolbox, but just know that this hormone decline can cause a lot of that too. And I think, on the flip side, it's a real time to sort of redefine ourselves, because our children may be growing and leaving the house, right? We may not need to work full time anymore. We may find new hobbies and things. So that's what I love coaching women on, not just the physical aspect, but emotionally, how do you want to be? What mindset do you want to have? And then who is this sort of version of you, 2.0, 3.0? Who do you want to be in this next phase? Because a lot of women get to this phase and they're like, I don't know who I am other than a mom.
Yeah.
I've been totally there for my family. What is this next step? So it's really can be an exciting time if you allow yourself to get there, right? And you have the energy to do it. If you're sleeping well and you have the hormones to help balance you, then you can start making those steps that you need.
Some of the biggest women CEOs of the world actually became CEOs or became successful after they realized, okay, I'm done with this phase of my life, and now I'm moving on to this phase of my life, and now I need to find who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also don't...
It's almost like taking your power back.
It is. It's a lot of taking your power back.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot less people-pleasing. And again, that could be the shifting of hormones, that you just care less about what people think about you, which is kind of not, it is a nice side effect. So yeah, I think all those things can really work to your advantage in menopause and perimenopause.
Oh my God, so amazing. You have so much knowledge, which is so good. And this kind of stuff is what's needed. These kind of discussions is what we really, really need in today's day and age, especially now in Nairobi and in Kenya. I'm really happy that we've had this conversation about all of this. Is there something that you feel like we haven't spoken about today that could be...
just to go back to it's finding a good practitioner that listens to you. I think it's doing your research before you go and talk to that practitioner. knowing what has worked for you in the past, what knowing about your body, and really just continuing to empower yourself and know that things are going to continue to change. And so if you're waiting for like, oh, I'm not that bad yet, or I don't feel that bad, start today, right? Start now, start the conversations, know what the next steps are, be prepared. Don't just wait until you wake up one day and feel like total crap.
Yeah.
I want women to start sooner rather than later to feel good.
Exactly. Start asking yourself and start listening to this little signs, because your body is always speaking to you, right? Every single time of the day, your body's always almost like whispering to you through little signs and signals that something is changing, something is happening.
Yeah.
It's just about sitting and listening back.
It is, yes.
Anything you'd like to ask me?
What's been your experience in sort of having discussions? Are you and your girlfriends talking about this now? Is it something that's starting to come up?
It's interesting because I feel that it is something that we talk about very openly. Mm-hmm. I think when I speak to my mom about stuff like this, she still doesn't share completely.
Right.
She's still not completely truthful and honest about what happened to her and how her menopause happened. But I feel like we as the next generation, we're here, we're listening, we're talking, we're addressing the situation. I myself am in a very, I would say, innocence is bliss kind of state, because I don't have my uterus anymore, because after I had my cancer diagnosis, I had my uterus removed, but I luckily convinced my doctor to leave my ovaries in, and so I still have my hormones. However, I don't have a period to tell me whether I'm ovulating every month regularly, whether I'm perimenopausing. I don't have a period to tell me. So when I do go into menopause, I probably won't even know. Which is innocence is bliss.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I think you'll probably have other little things that come up, possibly
like
these
the
little
frozen
signals,
shoulder and the joint pains, and all of that.
other things. But I think women don't realize that their monthly cycle is a vital sign of their health, right? So we know heart rate and blood pressure and all those things, but sometimes we don't realize that monthly cycle. So you don't have that anymore, but you're so in tune with your health. I know that you'll be aware and on top of it when it does come.
When it does come, exactly. And this is why I also wanted you here today, is because I already want to be aware. I already want to be on top of all of this, because I think that no knowledge is knowledge unless it is knowledge that you understand about your body first.
Yes.
That is the most important knowledge. Any other knowledge that you're going to gain is fine. But first thing you need to know is you're living in this body, you're driving this car. What is happening inside you? That is knowledge first before anything else is knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I have a handle, Green Juice Junkie with a Y, and that was back from my days of really loving to make green smoothies for my kids. So that's where that handle comes from. I'm on Facebook under Amanda Wright, WRIGHT, and I do have a TikTok handle. I don't remember. I think it's Green Juice Junkie. So
I'll add it all to the show notes.
Just put it in the show notes for sure. I'm in Nairobi. You can contact me on WhatsApp. I do one-on-one coaching for women, which I love, and really that just starts with, where are you now? Where do you want to go? What are your blind spots? What are your goals? What we really come up with a program for them. And it could be a couple times a month. It could be a once a month check-in. I'm sort of that best menopause friend that you need, that maybe you don't have yet, that can help you through this transition. And I'm, probably 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. And so I love helping women in that aspect. And then I do have an online course that I've run. I'll probably do it again. It's called the Metabolism Makeover. And so it's really teaching women. It's a four-part series on how to learn more about their metabolism, the changes they need to make to ultimately lose weight and have more lean body mass.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe one of these days we can have you in the studio, give a little talk about menopause and maybe guide some women through the community.
We were talking about that. Doing a class of some sort, get women together and
that would be something.
Yeah, I think that would be really great.
Because again, like what you said, it's so important for us to start sharing. The more we share in this situation, is the more we're going to
and break down the shame of it.
Yeah,
it can be really internal shameful time, because again your body's not reacting like it usually does.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
nobody cures you; you cure yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, this was absolutely amazing, Amanda. I'm so thankful that we've had this conversation, that we've finally had this conversation
properly.
that has been pending for
Yes.
such a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm really sure that this episode is going to be so helpful. And I actually don't think it's only helpful for women. I think it's also helpful for men
Absolutely.
to understand what's happening
Yeah.
in their women's lives so
Yeah.
that they can be there for them
Yes.
and be available for them, because they understand that how can I be of best service to my wife while she's going through this phase in her life.
Yeah, we need like a guidebook to give to our guys, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because it is stressful for them too. I mean, there is something called andropause, but it's not nearly as life-changing as menopause. And so, yeah, there's I think that's really helpful for men too.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.